With Canada cutting off oil exports to the US, Trump is looking to the Philippines' vast oil and gas reserves to fill the gap. This move directly challenges China's claims in the West Philippine Sea, setting the stage for a geopolitical showdown. As tensions rise, expect strong resistance from Beijing, which sees this as a threat to its regional dominance. The US President Donald Trump, has always been known for his aggressive trade policies, and his return to power has reignited a fresh wave of economic battles. On February 1st, 2025, Trump signed an executive order enacting a 25% tariff on all goods from Canada, with a reduced 10% tariff specifically on Canadian energy exports, including oil, natural gas, and electricity. He also implemented 10% additional tariff on imports from China. These tariffs were initially set to take effect on February 4, 2025. Trump explained that his reasons for this was to hold Mexico, Canada, and China accountable to their promises of halting illegal immigration and stopping poisonous fentanyl and other drugs from flowing into the US. However, this move has led to significant retaliation from Canada and China. Canada, a major supplier of oil to the US, has responded by cutting supply lines, forcing Washington to seek alternative energy sources. With China also restricting key exports, Trump has turned his attention to the untapped oil and gas reserves in the Philippines, particularly in the West Philippine Sea, WPS. The region is rich in energy resources, but it's also a hotspot of territorial disputes, with China aggressively asserting its claims, despite international rulings favoring the Philippines. As Trump pushes for US involvement in Philippine energy exploration, China is expected to push back hard. The WPS has long been a flashpoint, with Beijing constructing artificial islands, deploying its maritime militia, and flexing military muscle to keep control. Any move by the US to tap into these resources would undoubtedly escalate tensions, bringing the conflict closer to a boiling point. The U.S. Energy Information Agency estimates that the West Philippine Sea holds about 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas and 11 billion barrels of oil, improved and probable reserves, most of which lie along the margins of the South China Sea rather than under disputed islets and reefs. In 2012, the U.S. Geological Survey estimated that there could be another 160 trillion cubic feet of natural gas and 12 billion barrels of oil undiscovered in the West Philippine Sea. Beijing's estimates for hydrocarbon resources under the West Philippine Sea are considerably higher, but still modest in relation to China's overall demand, where the country's oil consumption in 2018 is expected to top 12.8 million barrels per day. This year, the Washington-based Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative reported that several countries are pursuing new oil and gas development projects in those contested waters, which, the organization notes, could become a flashpoint in the disputes. The envoy said a joint exploration within the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone in the South China Sea is also expected, as Philippine companies that have been given concessions in the area have been seeking potential partners in the US for a joint venture in the exploration of energy sources. With Canada cutting supplies to US, Trump is seeking alternative sources and plans to take advantage of its partnership with the Philippines to explore the untapped energy resources in the West Philippine Sea, a move that will greatly benefit the Philippines. As we all know, electricity costs in the Philippines are not only threatened by movements in the global energy markets, but also by the expected depletion of the Southeast Asian nation's only indigenous source of natural gas, Malampaya gas. The Malampaya gas field, which accounts for at least 40% of electricity needs in the Philippine capital region, is projected to run dry by 2027, with expected serious repercussions for the economy. Also, Philippine energy and semiconductor sectors are expected to heavily benefit from a $100 billion investment that the Philippines is expected to gain in the coming years. Between 2018 and 2021, there were numerous standoffs between China, Vietnam, the Philippines, and other Southeast Asian countries over drilling operations in disputed area of South China Sea. And fears are building that even more severe confrontations lie ahead. Fresh conflicts in the South China Sea may arise as claimants, excluding the Philippines, push ahead with oil and gas projects in areas Beijing claims. According to a new report, data from US-based Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative detailed claimants' new offshore projects, many of which lie inside China's sweeping 9-line claim, including sites where confrontations previously took place. According to think tank, with the China Coast Guard increasing the frequency of patrols across disputed waters, the prospect of confrontation between Chinese law enforcement and oil and gas operators at many of these locations is high. China, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia have moved forward with their energy, exploration, and development projects, while the Philippines continues to suspend all such ventures in contested waters, a policy adopted in 2014. With Trump eyeing the Philippines' oil and gas deposits, the US intends to partner with Philippines to explore this vast energy reserves, regardless of whether China will retaliate or not. The US is ready to fight back. It is no secret that today's focus of the US Navy is preparing for the possibility of conflict in the Pacific by 2027, and a recent maritime exercise with the US and the Philippines in the South China Sea, the fifth such publicized exercise, is a move that will likely irk China. The Philippine military said in a statement it held a maritime cooperative activity with the US, its first for the year and fifth overall since launching the joint activities in 2023. Security engagements between the two allies have soared under Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., who has pivoted closer to Washington, allowing the expansion of military bases that American forces can access, including facilities that face Taiwan. According to the report, Manila is the only claimant not developing hydrocarbon resources on the portions of its continental shelf covered by China's 9-line. Manila briefly permitted exploration at Reed Bank last spring, but quickly shut it down amid challenges from the China Coast Guard. The Philippines has a reasonable expectation that China will more forcefully block new work in the Reed Bank than it does elsewhere in the South China Sea. China has been critical of the Philippines' growing security ties with the US, calling the United States a threat to regional peace after the Marcos government gave it increased access to military bases under their 2014 Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. The Department of Energy has conveyed to Congress that President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has given the go signal to oil and gas exploration and drilling activities in the country, including at the disputed waters of the West Philippine Sea. Imagine sitting on a gold mine, yet never digging deep enough to claim its riches. That's exactly the situation unfolding in the West Philippine Sea, where the Recto Bank, a prime gas exploration site, sits at the heart of an escalating geopolitical showdown. Officially covered under Service Contract 72, previously granted by the Department of Energy, this resource-rich area holds the potential to transform the Philippines' energy landscape. But the problem is, the country has been falling behind its Southeast Asian neighbors when it comes to tapping into its own oil and gas reserves. While nations like Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam have built state-owned oil giants that dominate not just the region, but also the global petroleum stage, the Philippines has remained on the sideline. Even Vietnam, despite its own tense disputes with China, has played a smart game. Its leaders have skillfully navigated diplomatic tightropes, ensuring their oil and gas exploration continues without surrendering territorial claims. As Canada moves to cut oil and gas exports to the US, President Donald Trump has set his sights on alternative sources, including the vast, untapped reserves within the Philippines' Exclusive Economic Zone, EEZ. However, with China aggressively asserting its claims in the South China Sea, a geopolitical standoff is brewing, and Manila finds itself caught between two superpowers. The Philippines is at a critical juncture, with energy prices soaring and the Malampaya natural gas field nearing depletion. The country must rapidly explore alternative energy sources to secure its energy future. Reed Bank, one of the largest untapped oil and gas deposits in the region, offers a lucrative opportunity to address this challenge. The Department of Energy, DOE, has reported renewed investor confidence in the country's oil and gas sector following the government's efforts to boost the investment climate. A key milestone was the extension of the Malampaya Service Contract 38 until 2039, ensuring full utilization of the remaining 147 billion cubic feet of gas reserves, while opening the door for additional exploration. The approval of Shell Philippines Exploration's 45% stake transfer has led to an all-Filipino consortium taking charge of the Malampaya Deepwater Gas-to-Power project, marking a significant step toward energy sovereignty. Despite these advances, the Philippines must act quickly to ramp up its oil and gas exploration efforts. Joint maritime patrols with the U.S. Navy and enhanced naval security around exploration sites like Reed Bank are being strongly encouraged to deter foreign interference. With Canada reducing its energy exports to the U.S., Trump has turned his attention to alternative supply chains, emphasizing the potential of the Philippines' oil and gas reserves. His renewed interest comes amid calls for the U.S. to strengthen its economic and military ties with Manila, reinforcing the Philippines as a strategic partner in the Indo-Pacific region. For Washington, securing a reliable energy source from the Philippines presents a win-win scenario. It not only reduces dependence on Middle Eastern and Canadian oil, but also strengthens U.S. influence in a region increasingly dominated by China. China, however, has no intention of allowing the Philippines to freely exploit its own resources. Despite the 2016 Arbitral Tribunal ruling under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, invalidating China's expansive claims in the South China Sea, Beijing continues to enforce its so-called 9-dash line, now expanded to the 10-dash line. Chinese Coast Guard vessels have repeatedly harassed Philippine ships in contested waters, blocking resupply missions and disrupting energy exploration activities. Beijing argues that these waters, rich in hydrocarbons, belong to China based on its historical rights. However, the international ruling makes it clear the EEZ and continental shelf of the Philippines are sovereign territory, and China's claims are legally baseless. The recent escalation in the West Philippine Sea underscores the need for Manila to assert its rights with unwavering determination. The presence of U.S. military assets in the region provides some deterrence, but China remains undeterred, deploying its maritime militia and Coast Guard to enforce its territorial ambitions. The Philippines is sitting on an estimated $26.3 trillion worth of untapped petroleum deposits, mainly concentrated in Reed Bank, Mischief Reef, and the Sulu Celebes Sea. U.S. Geological Survey data suggests the Spratly Islands alone could hold 17.1 billion barrels of oil. If properly developed, these resources could transform the Philippines into a leading oil and gas exporter, eliminating its dependence on imported energy and fueling unprecedented economic growth. Notably, while much of the West Philippine Sea remains contested, significant reserves exist in undisputed regions such as the Sulu and Cotabato basins. According to the DOE, the Sulu Sea Basin holds an estimated 203 million barrels of oil equivalent, while the Cotabato Basin has confirmed 29 billion cubic feet of natural gas deposits. Unlike the Spratlys, these areas fall entirely within Philippine jurisdiction, making them prime targets for investment. The Philippines' energy future is at stake, and the government must take decisive action. This includes 1. Accelerating exploration and development in Reed Bank and other resource-rich areas. 2. Strengthening security measures through joint U.S.-Philippines naval patrols to prevent Chinese interference. 3. Attracting foreign investment while ensuring Filipino control over critical energy assets. 4. Asserting legal rights under UNCLOS and leveraging international support to counter China's expansionist claims. 5. Expanding domestic refining and production capacity to maximize the benefits of newfound energy resources. The world is watching as Manila navigates this high-stakes energy and geopolitical battle, With firm leadership, strategic partnerships, and a commitment to defending its sovereignty, the Philippines has the potential to emerge as an energy powerhouse in the Indo-Pacific. The future of the Philippines is bright, but only if the nation takes bold steps today. The time to act is now. In conclusion, the intersection of U.S. energy needs, Canadian supply cuts, Philippine oil reserves, and China's territorial ambitions creates a volatile situation. As Trump pushes for greater U.S. involvement in the Philippines' energy sector, China is gearing up to defend its claims. The coming years will determine whether this competition results in new energy partnerships or a dangerous escalation in the South China Sea. One thing is certain: the Philippines is now a key player in a global energy struggle.